Hello, friends. Today, Bojack Horseman's 5th season came out, and I'm here talking about it. It wouldn't be a Bojack Horseman reflection if it just wasn't me rambling for the entire time. So that's what we're gonna do. I mean, that's kind of all the reflections on this thing, but I think more so with this show in particular. And it's sort of fitting because one of the episodes easily not only the best episode of this season, but the best episode of the entire show and one of the best episodes of television I've ever seen in my entire freaking life is quite literally Bojack just rambling for the entire 26-ish minute time period. And it only flips between like 3 or 4 shots. Sorry about that. Because the episode is the 6th episode, and the 4th season was a lot about Bojack's mom. But this episode was her funeral, and the entire episode is his eulogy, and the whole episode is just so fantastic. I can't get over it. And I watched it again today, because this is the only show ever where, they'll drop the whole season on Netflix and I'll stay up all the way through the night to watch it. And, I have friends, I mean, most people do, I have friends that are like, when are we going to watch this together? When are we going to do that? Especially one of my closest friends who I watched the show, I believe I watched the first 2 seasons on my own, and then I watched the first 3 seasons with her. So when this one came out, she was kind of like, well, when are we going to see it? But with this show, I have to focus the camera. With this show, I can't wait, and I think that's a testament to how well developed these characters are. I mean, for an animated show, Bojack always has shown a lot of restraint, right? They don't go for the super cartoony set pieces, environment, stuff like that. Most of the time, it's set in very basic and fundamental locations that could have existed in a drama. But the reason why it's a cartoon, the reason why what's his name? I can't remember his name. The reason why he made the show a cartoon, and there was a quote from him too. He was like, I don't think you would connect to the character in the same way if it was just Will Arnett in live action standing there. And I think that's really interesting. So anyway, the eulogy episode, Free Churro, I'm probably gonna make a video about, honestly. Like, that's the thing with the other channel, the main channel, is it's like, ultimately, like, people, this is sort of meta, but it sort of goes into some of the stuff that the show even talks about in this season. The reason why people talk about things, the reason why people post on social media or make a video or do anything is because they want to express themselves. They want to tell people something. And they go on social media and they go on YouTube to tell people that thing because they're hoping that someone's out there who maybe they don't know that will listen. And that's why people make stuff. I mean, eventually there might be a point where people are motivated by other things like money or viewership, and not in terms of just the one person listening to their message, but in terms of actual numbers, money or viewership or celebrity or all these different kinds of things. But at least at first, before you get that following, before you do anything, the reason why you make that post, the reason why you make that video is because you want someone to listen. And people say that, I make this because I just like making it, but you wouldn't upload it to the internet if you didn't want people to listen. And that's something that I've had to cope with before, because there have been times when I would say, I just do this because I want to make a good video for myself. I like expressing myself. I like video editing. I like writing. I like all these different things. But why would I upload it if it was just for that reason, right? Anyway, so one of the major themes throughout BoJack Horseman that was really a key part of season 1, but also kind of continued throughout the rest of the show, was this idea of the sitcom. the whole concept of the show was Bojack Horseman was the star from a family sitcom in the 90s called Horseman Around. And at the end of the episode, there would be a happy resolution to the plot that took place throughout the episode. But now, some of the things have sort of flipped over time. And in the eulogy episode, one thing that Bojack mentions, he doesn't mention that it needs to have a happily resolved ending, because what he says is, well, it can't be a perfect ending, because then the show would have no reason to continue. And then when he says that, and then he pauses, and then he looks at the casket, and then he says, until there isn't. So this season specifically, is about him being on this new show called Filbert, and it's the first time he's on a show since Ethan Around, which he gave up on in the first episode because he was dealing with some stuff, and then before that was the Bojack Horseman show, and then before that was Horseman Around, right? And every other show was a failure, but Filbert ends up being this huge success because Bojack is really good at acting the main character, and he's supported by a really compelling supporting cast, including Mr. Peanut Butter, who we all know and love, and then Gina, who sort of becomes his significant other girlfriend sort of situation throughout the season until later on. And the main theme that sort of happens throughout the show is that unlike many other shows where he's suspending his disbelief in being a different character, Filbert is too much like Bojack for him to deal with it. He's playing this role, but the role is him. And one of the other fantastic episodes is the Showstopper, which was basically, the Filbert's first season did really well. It goes back for a second season, but he's completely addicted to painkillers as a result of an accident that happened earlier in the season, and then slowly gets addicted, yada, yada, yada. And the episode is just this crazy mishmash of experiences, and you can't tell as you're watching the episode when he's acting as Filbert and when he's himself, because the two plot lines are the same. There's some differences, of course, but in terms of how it feels, in terms of how it affects the character, in terms of the emotional development, it's the same. And so that creates a sort of tension within Bojack that leads to the big climactic moment of this season, where I won't watch the show. What else? I think that compared to season 4, I think this through line plot was a bit more compelling, to be honest. I really liked some of the episodes about Bojack's mom, and I especially liked the episode about Bojack's mom in this season, of course. But I think that a lot of the things that you don't think play a role in this core narrative end up playing a role. What just like early moments in the show, what you think is just a joke ends up being a key plot point. Like, it's crazy how this show manages to do stuff like that. It's absolutely incredible. Hollyhock returns for one episode. That episode's really good. She accidentally throws out Bojack's painkillers, and then he says that I need it for my back, but in reality, he's addicted to the painkillers, right? So they spend this entire visit. He hasn't seen Hollyhock since season 4, and they spend the entire visit trying to find painkillers, which is, it just shows how that addiction, that depression, that anxiety can sort of consume you and sort of affect the relationships of, your relationships with people around you. And at the end of the episode, she says, "I love you," and then he can't respond. And that moment really touched me. I'll be honest, I don't remember a lot of the season because I watched so much of it in the middle of the night. A lot of it kind of blurs together. But I really enjoyed it. And this might be my favorite season of the show, but I haven't decided yet. That what else? I don't know. There's not much else I really have to say. I think the feminism episode was really good. I like that one. And then the sort of themes that prop up there sort of continue throughout the season, kind of like I was saying before, and they sort of turn into a Me Too movement sort of critique, which then once again there's like a joke, and then the joke just keeps going, and then it turns into a serious plot point. You're like, oh my goodness, that's crazy. So it's crazy how those things evolve in that way. It's just absolutely insane. I learned some stuff about Diane and Princess Carolyn. They each have their own episode in this one. Diane's episode, after divorcing Mr. Peanut Butter, she goes to Vietnam because she's from Vietnam. And it's a good episode. I wouldn't say it's anywhere near the show's best, but it's framed around her having to write a listicle for the crappy BuzzFeed-esque website that she writes for. And so it's like, here's why you should visit Vietnam. And then, like, the points slowly transition from different things. And then suddenly the points that she's writing about aren't even about reasons why she's going to Vietnam. She's talking about events that happened before Vietnam. So it just kind of ties the whole thing together in a really interesting way. And the cool thing is it sort of played with this non-linearity, because you didn't know when certain things happened. But then they had this Halloween episode where there's this Halloween party at Bojack's house every year put on by Mr. Peanut Butter, because of course, and it frames so many of the events throughout the show and throughout this season, because the Halloween party is like, you know, it's a moment that leads to some character growth, and then it leads to Diane's first interaction with Bojack, which we didn't even see before. We didn't even know that she talked to Bojack before the memoir, but that was an interesting moment. And the moment where Todd moves in, and that's kind of like around where the show actually initially starts. So, very interesting stuff. So that was really good. The Princess Carolyn story was pretty good. Her whole thing this season is she wants to adopt, and then eventually doesn't. So that's that, I guess. I don't really have much else to say. This is kind of weird, but this show does things to you. It's one of the best shows on television, even though it's not on cable. But it is now, because it's coming to Comedy Central. So if you don't have Netflix, go watch the show on Comedy Central. It's a slow start, but you'll come to like it. I might show the free churro episode to someone just to get them into the show, because it doesn't rely so much on outside knowledge from other episodes, but there's definitely elements there where, like, you'll know something from another episode, and it enhances you know, some of the things that Bojack talks about. It's crazy how much he repeats himself throughout that episode too, but that's sort of the point. He's troubled. He doesn't really know how to cope with it. But anyway, that's all I got. So later.